She refused to ride in the wagon, so he walked beside her. It was a cool autumn day in a small, quiet town. The leaves danced in hues of gold and red, swirling through the air. A gentle breeze brushed against her face, but she stood firm, staring at the wagon filled with hay and laughter. People were cheering, children were clapping, but Sarah wanted no part of it. "Come on, Sarah," her friends urged. They were bubbling with excitement, each of them wanting to leap into the wagon, to feel the vibrations of the wheels rolling over the rugged dirt road. But Sarah shook her head. She'd always felt a strange knot in her stomach about riding in that wagon. It wasn't the bumps or the jostle that terrified her. It was the feeling of being trapped, helpless. Watching her friends, laughter ringing in the air, she noticed Ben standing nearby. He was tall, with dark hair that fell into his eyes and an easy smile that made other people beam back. Ben was different. He had a way of listening, as if every word mattered. He met her gaze and immediately understood. Without skipping a beat, he walked over, leaving behind the noisy crowd. He asked, his voice smooth and calm. At first, she hesitated. The wagon was where everyone else was, where the fun lived, but the thought of being in that cramped space felt suffocating. She nodded slowly, feeling a rush of relief that someone would walk beside her instead of pressuring her to join the crowd. Together, they set off along a narrow path away from the rest. The sound of laughter faded behind them, replaced by the crunching leaves underfoot and the soft whisper of the wind. Ben matched her pace, keeping his long stride slow enough for her to keep up. "You know, there's nothing wrong with wanting to walk," he said. Sarah smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. "It's just..." Understanding flickered in Ben's eyes. "I get that." He spoke words that resonated deep within her. It was true. Surrounded by noise, she often felt invisible. Walking alongside Ben, she felt seen. No pressure, no expectations, just two souls moving in the beautiful quiet. As they walked, they ventured deeper into the forest, where the trees provided a sheltering canopy. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating a golden haze around them. The air was crisp, and there was a peacefulness here that contrasted with the excitement back in town. Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ben looked at her thoughtfully, then nodded. "Yeah, a lot." Sarah's heart raced. It was like he could see into the depths of her thoughts, into the quiet fears that held her back. "I feel that way all the time." Ben stopped walking, and she followed suit. He looked the forest around them, then back at her. "You're not alone in that," he said, earnestness coloring his voice. Her chest tightened with a mix of relief and sadness. She asked, curiosity sparking inside her. He sighed, the weight of his memories hanging in the air. "I lost my mom a few years ago. I keep expecting her to walk through the door or call me." Suddenly, the sacred space between them felt even more vulnerable. "I'm so sorry," she replied softly. His eyes clouded with hurt, and she felt a wave of empathy wash over her. There was something deeply human in his pain. After a pause, he added, "But I think being honest about it helps." Sarah absorbed his words deeply. Opening up to Ben felt like cracking open a door to a world full of possibilities. "Maybe that's what I need to do," she whispered, mostly to herself. Together, they resumed their walk, the silence between them no longer filled with uncertainty. Instead, it was a space of understanding where each step felt lighter. As they moved through vibrant patches of fallen leaves, laughter echoed faintly from the town again. The kids in the wagon were still whooping and cheering, but Sarah felt more content here. The contrast of joy and pain created a bittersweet melody around them. Time passed, but neither hurried. They came across a stone bench, half hidden under an old oak tree. Ben gestured for her to sit. "Let's take a break," he suggested, and she gladly accepted. "This place is beautiful," she said, glancing around at the colorful foliage. "I come here often to think," he replied. She admired how he found solace in nature. "I should try that more." Ben turned to her, excitement lighting up his face. "We could make this a regular thing." "Wouldn't that be nice?" The idea felt warm and comforting, like a cozy blanket on a chilly day. "I'd like that," she said, a smile spreading across her face. And with that, a bond began to form. Vulnerabilities shared made both of them stronger. They spoke openly about dreams, about fears. As each leaf fell around them, each conversation felt like shedding something heavy, freeing each other from the weight of loneliness they both carried. Ben shared tales of his childhood, little adventures that painted a picture of where he had come from. Sarah responded with snippets of her own life, secret joys and hidden worries. Every word woven together created a tapestry of trust. As dusk approached, the forest began to glow under the soft orange light of sunset. Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had once thought of her refusal to ride in the wagon as a burden, but now it felt like a defining moment. It was a choice leading her to this serene place, walking shoulder to shoulder with someone who truly understood. But then their laughter interrupted by the distant sound of the wagon returning. Sarah felt a twinge of heaviness. The party was not over, and her friends would soon start searching for her. The desire to return to the laughter struggled with the warmth she felt with Ben. She finally asked, her voice a mixture of longing and hesitation, "Only if you want to." "We could stay right here," he said, his eyes glimmering in the fading light. She wanted to be brave enough to stay with him, just the two of them, surrounded by nature, sharing truth and warmth, yet the pull of friendship from the wagon tempted her. They had spent hours growing closer, but would the world still feel inviting when they returned, she suggested. He smiled, a reassuring nod making everything feel right, but as the last rays of sun disappeared behind the horizon, anxiety crept in. Sarah murmured, "They'll understand you needed time to breathe," Ben replied thoughtfully. And it was true, taking time for yourself didn't mean you cared less for those you loved. As they settled into the stillness, Sarah felt something shift inside her. Perhaps it was the understanding that vulnerability led to connection. She found solace in Ben's company, and the fear of being alone in her emotions faded. It was refreshing to know there was someone who chose to stand beside her, letting her walk her own path. Minutes turned into hours as they lost track of time, sharing dreams for the future and reminiscing about moments from their past. Each story illuminated pieces of who they were, drawing them closer. Finally, a distant horn signaled the end of the celebration. The laughter from the town grew louder, calling them back to their lives. As darkness wrapped around the tall trees, a decision lay before Sarah. "Let's go," she said, feeling a mix of resolve and excitement. Ben nodded, standing up and offering his hand. She took it, a surge of connection sparking between them. As they walked back, hand in hand, Sarah realized that sometimes refusing the things that made you feel trapped leads to the most beautiful moments. She had chosen to walk instead of ride, facing her fears and finding joy in unexpected places. With Ben beside her, she felt braver than ever. The wagon had its laughter, but it was the walk that sparked something deeper within her, a bond that would carry her through the challenges ahead. In that moment, as the darkness enveloped the world, she knew she wasn't just walking back to familiarity. She was embracing the journey of connection, one step at a time. Stay back. It was a sharp cry that sliced through the laughter and clamor of the charming autumn festival. The air was filled with the crisp scent of cinnamon and the warmth of roasted apples. Children raced past, their joyous squeals mingling with the chatter of friends and families. But amidst this joyful chaos stood a girl, Sarah, with her arms crossed tightly against her chest, desperately fighting the urge to turn and flee. The wagon was big and colorful, decorated with twinkling lights and surrounded by eager faces. Everyone was climbing in, ready for the afternoon's hayride. Everyone, that is, except for Sarah. She felt the heat rising in her cheeks as her friends attempted to pull her up into the cart, their laughter ringing in her ears like a crowd cheering for a performer who never took the stage. One of her friends laughed, but Sarah's heart pounded fiercely in her chest. She took a step back, retreating to the back of the crowd, willing herself to disappear. "Come on, Sarah," they joked, but there was an edge to their voices, a mix of concern and impatience. She yelled back, surprising herself. The word burst out before she could catch it, firm and defiant. As laughter faded, all eyes turned to her. In that moment, Sarah felt both exposed and empowered, but a rush of anxiety washed over her. Wagon swayed lightly, filled with grinning faces anticipating the fun, while she stood in stark contrast, an island of reluctance in a sea of excitement. Then from the corner of her eye, she spotted Ben. He was tall, with tousled hair and a smile that radiated warmth. He had always stood just a little back from the crowd, an observer ready to lend a hand. His expression was one of calm understanding, and at that moment something in Sarah shifted. "Hey," he called out, stepping away from the chaos. Her heart skipped a beat. The idea felt radical, liberating. She glanced back at the wagon, its colorful chaos beckoning like a siren. But standing here, the temptation of that ride felt like a weight, heavy and oppressive. She wanted to be free, to step away from expectations. "Yes," she said quietly, and in that moment it felt like the world around her exhaled. Ben smiled, extending his hand, and together they forged a new path away from the festive crowd and into the quiet embrace of the park nearby. The leaves crunched beneath their feet, golds and reds twirling around them like tiny fireworks, invigorating her spirit. As they walked side by side, the vibrant chatter behind them faded into a distant hum. Ben asked, his voice soft yet curious. Sarah hesitated. Was she brave enough to share? "Tight," she admitted, almost as if uttering a secret. "I don't like being boxed in." She felt raw and exposed, but Ben nodded, his understanding evident in his eyes. He paused for a moment to let her words settle, and with that she felt a wave of courage flow through her. "Sometimes it's easier to stay outside the loudness," he offered, looking straight ahead as if reflecting on his own thoughts. A small smile crept onto her face. It was like he understood the very core of her being, something she had struggled to articulate. Yes, as they meandered deeper into the park, the air turned cooler and the spaciousness around them filled with a comforting silence, occasional bird calls echoing between the trees. Sarah felt herself unwinding. Here there was no pressure to conform, to fill a role, just two people walking and talking, sharing a comfortable rhythm. Ben asked, suddenly turning to her with those earnest eyes. His question crystallized something within her. "A lot of things," she said, stuck. There was a vulnerability in her admission, but there was also strength in saying it out loud. Ben studied her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I get that. I feel like that sometimes too." The air between them was charged with honesty, and as Sarah listened to Ben, she realized just how connected their feelings truly were. For every breath she took, it seemed that he shared in her struggle. But then I remind myself that just because I'm not following the same path doesn't mean I'll be left behind, he added. His words sank deep into her heart, echoing with a wisdom that felt both familiar and new. She could see how he too faced obstacles, fears, how he confronted them. He was brave. They moved onward, stepping carefully over the roots that twisted up from the ground like fingers reaching for the sky. Each stride felt liberating. Sarah felt lighter, the weight of her earlier impulses lifted. As they wandered, the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows on the earth. It was stunning here among the trees, and Sarah felt a sense of joy bubbling within her. She turned to Ben. "We should come back here again sometimes just to think or talk." He grinned back at her. "Definitely can make this a thing." Her heart pounded. There was something in his smile, an invitation to something deeper. The thought of returning, of creating their own sanctuary, ignited a fire of hope within her. They wandered into a small clearing where a bench overlooked a serene pond, the water reflecting the vibrant colors of the sky. Ben took a seat and gestured for her to join him. He asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. The question caught her off guard, but in the lowering light, Sarah felt emboldened. "When I was little, my family had a cabin by the lake. I loved to wake up early to watch the sunrise." There was an enchanting quality in her tone that made Ben lean closer as if he wanted to capture every word. "My granddad used to take me fishing," he recalled, his expression softening. "Even if we never caught anything, I just loved sitting there by the river." For them, every shared word drew them closer together. They were wrapped in warmth and light, almost like they were in their own little world away from everyone else. Time slipped through their fingers as they exchanged laughter and dreams, fears and hopes. The sun continued to dip lower, casting a golden hue around them. With every moment, Sarah could see layers of Ben peel away, revealing the heart of a kindred spirit. "It's funny how one choice can change everything," she said, gazing up at the colors shifting in the sky. Ben nodded, his demeanor thoughtful. "Sometimes it takes a single moment of courage to step away from what's expected." His words wove into her heart like a thread, stitching together a tapestry of understanding and connection. She had taken a small step away from the crowd, and in doing so, found someone who saw her, who walked beside her. As darkness settled around them, shadows began to creep between the trees. A shiver ran down her spine, but it wasn't fear, it was anticipation. For the first time in a long while, Sarah felt like she belonged, like she was truly seen. "I didn't know you had all this inside you," she said, moving closer. "You're not," he replied simply, his voice steady and reassuring. As the stars began to twinkle above, she felt inexplicably drawn to him, the weight of the world melting away. There was beauty in their vulnerability, the way they were unearthing pieces of themselves. But the sound of laughter carried through the trees again, pulling their attention back to the festival. Reality loomed, demanding they return to their friends. The glowing lights beckoned from afar, a reminder of the world outside their bubble. "I guess we should head back," Sarah said reluctantly, her heart heavy with the thought of leaving this sacred space. "Yeah, we should," Ben agreed, though a reluctant tone colored his voice. They rose from the bench, but as they started to walk back, his hand brushed against hers, and for a moment everything paused. She felt an electric pulse travel through her, sudden and alive, igniting a spark she hadn't anticipated. "That was nice," he murmured warmly, and she could feel the weight of their shared moments lingering in the air. "Yes," she breathed, feeling breathless and invigorated all at once. As they made their way back toward the laughter, she realized she had taken a step away from the wagon, but had walked toward something far greater. No longer was she that girl standing on the sidelines. No longer was she trapped in her own fear. With Ben walking beside her, she was ready to embrace the journey ahead, whatever it may hold. Together, they emerged from the trees into the bright, noisy festival, the warmth of companionship glowing as vividly as the lights surrounding them. In that moment, Sarah felt freedom, courage, and above all, hope. No longer afraid of the crowd, she took a deep breath and held her head high, knowing she had someone beside her who understood and accepted her just the way she was. Together, they stepped into the vibrant world waiting ahead, ready to carve their own paths hand in hand. "Wait," the yell echoed in the crisp autumn air, cutting through the laughter and chatter of the bustling fairground. Sarah stood frozen, heart racing, as the bright red wagon filled with her friends bounced ahead. The autumn festival was meant to be fun, a celebration of harvest and laughter, but as she watched the wagon sway, her stomach twisted into knots. She cried again, more fiercely this time, trying to break the spell holding her back. She felt the weight of her friends' eager faces pressing her to join, but there was something about that wagon that made her insides churn. The thought of climbing in, surrounded by jostling bodies and raucous laughter, filled her with a sense of panic. It was suffocating, like being trapped in a box with no way out. And just as the last of her friends climbed aboard and waved goodbye, she turned. That's when she spotted him, Ben. He stood a few paces away, studying her with a thoughtful look, his dark hair tousled by the wind. In a sea of cheers and excitement, he seemed to sense her turmoil. He asked, his voice steady and calm, slicing through her doubts like a knife. The crowd was moving, the wagon rolling off, but here was Ben, standing there like a lifeline. Sarah felt her fear ease. "Yeah, I think I'd like that," she managed to say. It was a small choice, but in that moment it felt monumental. As they walked side by side, the noise of the fair faded, replaced by the rustle of leaves underfoot and the gentle breeze stirring the air. The golden and crimson leaves fluttered down, forming a shimmering carpet under their feet. With every step, the weight on her chest lifted a bit more. "What's wrong? You seem pretty set on not going in that wagon," Ben said, glancing at her with a curious expression. She sighed, the knot in her stomach loosening just a little more. "It's just, I don't know. I hate feeling trapped. Once I'm in there, it's like I can't escape. Everything feels too cramped." His brow furrowed in understanding. "I get that." There was a softness in his eyes that made her feel seen, understood. She nodded, grateful for his empathy. "Exactly. Why do we have to follow everyone else? Just because everyone else had fun doesn't mean I will." His words were accompanied by an encouraging smile. "You can take your time, enjoy the view." Sarah felt the warmth of his presence beside her. In choosing not to ride, she was taking control of her own journey, and having Ben beside her made it all the more reassuring. As they tread deeper into the park, the sounds of the festival dwindled, leaving behind a tranquil silence. They stumbled upon a path lined with towering trees, their leaves fluttering like confetti in the gentle wind. Ben inquired, genuinely curious. An image of quiet mornings came to her mind. "I love to read. Getting lost in another world, it feels like freedom." "That sounds nice," he said, looking thoughtful. "I've always loved writing. Words have a way of creating bridges, connecting thoughts." There was something profound in his gaze that resonated deeply with her. The conversation flowed effortlessly between them like a river following its own course, each word carving deeper into understanding. "I think you have a voice too," he added. That struck a chord inside her. She'd always felt the pressure to conform, to fit into the expected mold of those around her. But here, walking side by side with Ben, she felt the beginnings of possibility. She admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "You'll find it bit by bit. It's like a puzzle. Sometimes you have to just start putting pieces together," he encouraged, pointing to a pile of autumn leaves. Sarah smiled, feeling a warmth blossom inside. "Life doesn't have to fit in a neat little box." He paused, as if gathering his thoughts. "You can be anything, anywhere." His words hung in the air, filling the silence with a profound weight. She felt that familiar flutter of connection deepen, as if they were weaving an invisible thread between them. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden rays around them, Sarah felt a tinge of hesitation. The laughter from the festival floated back into their world, urging her to return. She could see the wagon already half full again, her friends waving with bright smiles. The tug of camaraderie and belonging pulled at her heart, but she felt torn. Sarah whispered, the shadows of doubt creeping back. Ben turned to her, his expression earnest. "You're not a loner for choosing what you want." The truth of his words felt like a spark igniting her spirit. She had always battled the fears of judgment and of missing out, yet right now she felt emboldened to stay true to who she was. As they walked further, a small stream babbled nearby, the sound of water flowing between the stones a soothing balm to her restless thoughts. "What do you think you'll find if you keep walking?" Ben asked, tilting his head slightly. The question echoed within her. "I don't know," she replied honestly, biting her lip. "Exactly," he chimed in, enthusiasm lighting up his eyes. "And you never know what you might discover about yourself and the world." As they walked farther into the park, a deeper sense of trust began to blossom. With Ben beside her, the winds of uncertainty felt less daunting. Each footfall became a note in a symphony of exploration, a song of autonomy amid the melodic backdrop of nature. "I think what really matters is that you stay true to who you are," Ben said, looking at her earnestly. His words were fuel to her spirit. In the tangled journey of life, it was important to embrace the detours, to explore paths untraveled. As they emerged into a clearing, the bright colors of the sunset spread across the sky like liquid gold, painting everything in a breathtaking glow. Sarah stood at the edge, speechless, taking it all in, the expanse, the beauty, the freedom to be herself without fear. "This is incredible," she breathed. "It is," he agreed, their eyes meeting in that golden light. "And remember, being true to yourself means allowing for moments like these." In that moment, time seemed to halt, and the weight of their journey together settled around them like a warm embrace. The serenity of the moment made her feel alive, more alive than she had in a long time. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, a familiar sound drifted back to them again, the joyous laughter of the festival, inviting and enticing. But this time, Sarah felt different. She wasn't scared of missing out. Taking a deep breath, she turned to Ben, feeling emboldened. "Let's just stay for a bit longer." He smiled, a glimmer of understanding between them. And as dusk enveloped them, it was like the world had shifted around Sarah. Here among the colors of the sunset, she felt lighter, unburdened by expectations. She realized that each choice carved her path, defining who she was becoming. With Ben by her side, walking beside her felt less like an escape and more like an adventure. She was choosing to navigate through life's uncertainties together. As they lingered in the fading light, Sarah understood that choosing not to ride in the wagon had led her to something greater, a connection, a newfound sense of self, and the strength to embrace it. With every step forward, she felt more assured, more ready to face the world ahead. And with someone walking beside her, she was no longer afraid of what lay next on her journey. In fact, she was excited to see it all unfold. No longer held back by fear, Sarah smiled, ready for whatever awaited her. Together with Ben walking beside her, she felt the thrill of possibility glowing in the twilight. The voice dripped with exasperation as Sarah stood with her hands on her hips, her heart racing in the crowded field of the summer festival. Around her, the sounds of laughter and music filled the air, the sunlight bathing everything in a warm glow. Children darted past, chasing each other, while families gathered around colorful stalls, all of them buzzing with excitement. But right in front of her was the wagon, a big, bright yellow cart filled to the brim with hay and wide-eyed friends. It rocked gently, inviting her to hop on and join in the merriment. Yet all she could think was how much she wanted to escape the confines of that creature. She felt boxed in, trapped by expectations. "I just can't," she replied, shaking her head, taking a small step back as if the wagon were a wild animal ready to pounce. Her friends exchanged puzzled glances, eyebrows raised. Dismissing them, Sarah turned away, her heart pounding with anxiety. The laughter and chatter faded momentarily as she moved to the edge of the crowd, searching for anyone who might understand, and then she saw him, Ben. He stood a few feet away, holding a soda, his dark curls bouncing slightly as he moved. Always the observer, Ben seemed to sense her unease. Without a hint of judgment, he strolled over, his easy smile lighting up the space between them. He asked, a genuine concern etched across his features. She sighed deeply, grateful for his presence. "I just don't feel like riding in that wagon." Sarah blinked at him, surprised by the invitation. "Great, I'll walk with you," he said, a bright smile breaking across his face. Just like that, they turned away from the crowd, leaving the wagon behind. Suddenly, it felt like a great weight had lifted from her shoulders. The sun cast a warm glow as they ventured deeper into the festival grounds, heading toward a quieter path lined with trees. The gentle rustle of the leaves above seemed to echo her breathing as they walked side by side. The joy of the festival faded into the background, and her heartbeat gradually slowed to a more comfortable rhythm. With every step, she felt more rooted in her decision, more confident in her choice. Ben asked, glancing sideways at her. She considered her answer, feeling her thoughts come alive. "I guess it's just cramped. It feels like I can't breathe, like everyone else is having fun while I'm trapped inside. I hate that feeling. I want to be free." He nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I get that," she exclaimed, feeling a rush of relief. Ben smiled, a knowing glint in his eye. They fell into an easy rhythm as they walked, exchanging stories about their lives, all the while gathering courage to share deeper insecurities. The sunlight filtered through the trees, painting soft spots of gold on the path as if nature herself encouraged their honesty. Ben asked, his voice steady. This was a loaded question, one she had wrestled with many times. "I try to find a quiet place, maybe read a book or just sit in silence." "Silence can be deafening if your mind won't stop racing," he acknowledged. His empathy wrapped around her like a warm blanket. "I write mostly, it's where I can pour everything out." There was something soothing about his presence, a grounding energy that calmed her soul. "I've never been great at writing," she admitted, her lips curving into a reluctant smile. "You should," he replied without hesitation. "Everyone has a voice." At that moment, Sarah felt a rush of gratitude. Here, walking beside Ben, she was embracing the freedom to explore her thoughts. She didn't have to perform or follow someone else's version of fun. As they ventured further down the path, the sounds of the festival began to fade into the background. The air around them shifted, filled with the scent of damp earth and pine needles. Ben paused at a small stream, its water gurgling over rocks, glimmering in the sunlight. "Let's take a break," he suggested, gesturing to a log beside the stream. She nodded, relieved. They sat together, their feet stretched out in front of them. The world around them felt untouched, serene. The gentle splash of the water seemed to wash away the stress they had left behind. Ben asked, breaking the silence. Sarah pondered his question, watching the water flow. "Sometimes, I always worry about what people will think." He laughed lightly, a contagious sound that warmed her heart. "If they do, it says more about them than it does about you." "I guess courage isn't just about doing big things," she mused, realizing the truth residing in his words. "Exactly," he replied, a smile of approval on his face. They sat in comfortable silence, the sun casting a golden hue around them. Time seemed to melt away as thoughts meandered into memories and contemplations. They spoke about their dreams, ambitions, and the hopes that felt just out of reach. She asked curiously, "Sometimes, I think we all do, society has this mold it expects us to fit into, but it's so important to break free from it when you feel that pressure. We aren't made to conform," he said, conviction ringing in his voice. The way he spoke struck a chord within her, breaking free pieces of her own shackled aspirations. "It must be nice to write. It feels freeing," he admitted. "Sometimes it's scary too. What if people misunderstand?" His vulnerability resonated deeply with her. "But you do it anyway, don't you?" He smiled again, and in that moment Sarah saw a glimpse of who he was beyond the surface, strong, courageous, and unapologetically authentic. Everyone has something worth sharing. She savored his words, knowing they echoed her own fears and desires. "I want to start sharing too. I want to write to express what's in my heart. Who knows?" "Absolutely." It could resonate more than you realize, Ben encouraged, leaning forward. The sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the earth. The world felt as though it were holding its breath, and Sarah felt that electric connection between them grow stronger as they shared these moments. She asked, wanting to dive deeper still. He paused for a moment, considering the question. His honesty was refreshing, and she marveled at how easily they had slipped into this openness, laying bare pieces of themselves like petals unfurling. "I'm grateful for this conversation," she confessed. Ben nodded, his eyes sincere. "Me too." As the sky turned to shades of orange and purple, their laughter mingled with the distant sounds from the festival, reminding her of the life back in the bustling crowd. But here, it felt different. She asked reluctantly, knowing the festival would eventually call her back to the center of life. "Only if you want to," he replied gently. "There's no rush." The comfort of his words wrapped around her, settling in her heart. Sarah realized she didn't want to race back to the chaos just yet. She wanted to linger in this quiet where their connection felt profound and genuine. "Let's stay a bit longer," she suggested, her voice steady. "Then let's enjoy it," he grinned, leaning back against the log, eyes alight with excitement. They fell into a rhythm again, sharing stories, laughing softly, discussing everything from the books they loved to the dreams that scared them most. With every word, Sarah felt more alive, more like the person she wanted to be. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow on until twilight settled in, she took a deep breath, savoring the sweetness of this moment. With Ben beside her, walking away from the expectations of the festival had transformed from a source of anxiety into an adventure filled with possibility. In his company, she felt braver than ever. The little girl who once feared riding in the wagon was learning to chart her own course, step by step. "This has been incredible," she remarked, turning to him, her heart full. He smiled, the warmth in his gaze reassuring. "Anytime." And just like that, she knew that this moment wasn't just an escape from the festival, it was a new beginning. Together, they would navigate through life's unpredictable paths, taking turns and carving out spaces where they could truly be themselves. As darkness enveloped the world around them, Sarah felt ready to embrace whatever might come next, unafraid and empowered. With Ben walking beside her, she was no longer looking to fit into someone else's wagon. She was ready to steer her own journey, one brave step at a time. The question cut through the laughter and excitement swirling around the autumn festival, leaving Sarah standing there, hands clenched at her sides. Bright harvest colors painted the landscape vivid reds, oranges, and yellows that filled her heart with warmth. Kids dashed around in costumes, their shrieks of joy mingling with upbeat music, yet all she felt was a growing sense of dread. The wagon sat a few feet away, overflowing with hay bales and the cheerful faces of her friends, all urging her to join them. But as she watched the wagon sway, filled with joyful shrieks and laughter, her stomach twisted into knots. The thought of squeezing in with everyone, feeling the weight of their expectations, filled her with a mix of anxiety and dread. "Come on, Sarah," one friend called, bouncing in place with excitement. "No, I really can't," she insisted, her heart pounding. Each rejection felt like a weight pressing down on her, making her feel smaller and smaller. But just then she noticed him, Ben. He stood a few steps away, his brow furrowed in concentration. He always had a way of observing, as if he could sense the unspoken words swirling around. As if sensing her turmoil, he stepped forward, drawing her attention away from the wagon. He offered, his tone steady and calm. The sound of the wagon fading felt like an escape, and suddenly she was ready to accept his invitation. "Yeah, I'd like that," she said, relief flooding through her. With a nod, he turned and began walking, and she fell in step beside him. The noise of the festival began to fade, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the fresh scent of autumn air. It felt as if the weight of the world lifted off her shoulders the moment she left the chaos behind. "I don't get why you didn't want to ride," Ben remarked, stealing a sideways glance. "It's just, I can't handle being in confined spaces with so many people," Sarah replied. "I feel trapped, like I can't breathe." "Ah, I get that," he said, looking thoughtful. Sarah looked at him, surprised by his understanding. It felt incredibly freeing to share her feelings without fear of judgment. "Exactly, and I just wanted to feel." "Freedom is a big deal," Ben said, his smile warm. "Walking gives you that sense of control, you know." They continued along a winding path that cut through the park, the canopy of trees towering above them, leaves fluttering down like confetti. Each step felt lighter, as if with every stride she was shedding layers of tension that had built up inside her. Sarah asked, wanting to delve deeper into their conversation. Ben paused for a moment, considering her question. "I think it's just how society is set up," he said finally. "We're taught to follow scripts, to do what everyone else is doing." He reached down to pick up a leaf, holding it up, the vibrant colors mesmerizing against the backdrop of the forest. "It's beautiful, right? But this leaf didn't grow to fit in with the others." A small smile tugged at Sarah's lips. "You're right." As they walked further, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They shared their dreams and fears, the words bouncing between them like leaves caught in the breeze. Sarah felt a connection growing stronger with each passing moment, a budding understanding that seemed to transcend their friendship. Finally, they reached a clearing where the trees parted, revealing a tranquil pond that reflected the vibrant colors of the sky. Ben stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "This is nice. I love finding quiet spots like this." Sarah nodded, taking in the serene beauty of it all. "I could sit here forever," she admitted. "Let's do it then. Let's sit," Ben suggested, plopping down on a fallen log and gesturing for her to join him. She obliged, sitting down beside him. The gentle sounds of the water lapping against the shore melded with the rustle of leaves in a soothing rhythm. He asked, looking at her with curiosity. Her stomach fluttered at the question. "I've always wanted to try writing," she confessed, "but I feel like I'm not good enough, you know." "Writing is all about finding your own voice. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be true to you," he said. Sarah studied him, her heart racing with newfound inspiration. "I know you could," he replied, earnestness filling his voice. Everyone has a story worth telling. Encouraged by his belief in her, she felt an exhilarating rush. The doubts that usually clouded her mind began to lift. "Maybe I will, I want to see." His enthusiasm was infectious, filling her with hope. As they sat together, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue across the water. The serene atmosphere wrapped around them like a secret, and with every passing moment, their bond deepened. She could see the depths of his character, the ways he related to her, and she felt the pull of connection stronger than ever before. Sarah asked, glancing at him, her curiosity piqued. All the time, he admitted, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes it feels like everyone else has it all figured out and I'm just floating," she exclaimed, recognizing the crowd of anxieties encircling her own life. "Sometimes I feel lost, like I'm not living up to my potential." "No one is," Ben replied with a gentle smile. "We're all on our own journeys, navigating the twists and turns." That notion struck a deep chord within her, invigorating her spirit. Sitting beside Ben, away from the festivity, she felt encouraged to follow whatever path called to her, unfazed by the whims of the world outside. "Thank you for being here with me," she said, sincerity radiating in her voice. "I'm glad you chose to walk instead of ride." "This has been great," he said softly, looking directly into her eyes. The moment felt electric, charged with unspoken connection. Around them, the sun surrendered to the horizon, painting the sky in warm, fading colors. The ambience shifted into a deeper tranquility as their thoughts intermingled freely. As the wind picked up, carrying leaves through the air, Sarah caught sight of the distant festival lights twinkling against the twilight. The playful sounds of laughter echoed from afar, but the pull back to the crowd felt different now. Ben asked, his expression cautious. A part of her wanted to return to the fun of the festival, to share their revelations with friends, but another part wanted to linger here, holding on to the connection they had forged amidst the beauty of nature. Sarah pleaded softly. "Absolutely," he replied, shifting a little closer, his eyes sparkling in the twilight. As they sat quietly, she felt something shift inside her, expanding the boundaries of her world. Here she had embraced her deepest fears, shared her dreams, and explored the essence of who she was. "It's fascinating how stepping away changes everything," she mused, her voice barely above a whisper. Ben nodded, the warmth in his gaze reassuring. "Sometimes we need to break from the ritual to discover what truly brings joy." "Yeah," she pondered, a smile gracing her lips. "Definitely," he said. "It gives you space to hear your own thoughts, follow your own desires." She chuckled softly at the metaphor, a picture forming in her mind of guiding her own journey. With every shared story, each vulnerable moment, she was beginning to chart her course, discovering her voice amidst the rustling leaves of uncertainty. The sun finally dipped fully below the horizon, leaving behind a blanket of stars twinkling above. And just like that, Sarah realized that this day, the choice to walk instead of ride had guided her to something monumental. Her fears, her uncertainties, all washed away by the clarity of newfound friendship. Ben asked, breaking the serene silence, his voice a gentle caress in the night. She paused, letting the question sit with her, searching her heart for the answer. "I've learned that it's okay not to fit into the boxes others create. And I'm glad you're choosing to take that journey," he replied, a soft smile shining through the darkness. Feeling buoyed by his words, Sarah knew it wouldn't be their last adventure together. With every step they took, they would uncover parts of themselves, each moment shifting like sand underfoot. "Let's continue walking," she said with new fire. Together, their laughter intertwined with the sounds of nature surrounding them, echoing the spirit of adventure. Underneath the blanket of stars, they began to walk back, side by side, ready to embrace whatever awaited them in the darkened world ahead. As they ventured back toward the festival lights, she felt a newfound sense of confidence blossoming within her, knowing that she could choose her path, embrace her voice, and ultimately discover the beauty of living authentically alongside someone who understood her journey. Life wasn't about riding in the wagon, it was about forging ahead, step by step, hand in hand. The question echoed in Sarah's ears, bouncing off the laughter that filled the air like music at the bustling autumn festival. It was a vivid scene. Kids in colorful costumes scurried by. The smell of caramel apples and cinnamon wafted through the crowd, and everyone was buzzing with excitement. But right in front of her was a bright red wagon, filled with hay and laughter, inviting her in. And yet, when she looked at it, all she felt was a wave of anxiety crashing over her. Despite her friend's encouraging cheers, it felt like a cage closing in around her. "I can't," she replied firmly, crossing her arms. Her friends paused, surprise painted on their faces, and Sarah felt the weight of their confusion pressing down on her. The wagon swayed slightly, filled with smiling faces, all urging her to join. But inside her chest, her heart raced wildly, every beat shouting a protest. "Come on, don't be lame." One friend shouted, laughing as she leaned back against the side of the wagon. Sarah's voice burst out, more forceful than she intended. It made her feel exposed, but the only thing more uncomfortable was being crammed into that chaotic scene. Just then she noticed Ben standing a few paces away, his brown hair tousled by the cool wind. He was always the calm one, the observer. Unlike the others, he didn't rush to pressure her. Instead, he took a step closer, his eyes meeting hers. He asked, his voice soothing like a soft blanket on a chilly day. A wave of relief washed over her. "Yes, please." Without another word, they turned away from the rowdy crowd, leaving behind the laughter and the colorful chaos. The world outside the festival suddenly felt vast. Each step they took was like a small sigh of freedom. As they ventured deeper into the park, the chatter faded, replaced by rustling leaves and the soft sound of their footsteps underfoot. The air was fresh, and a gentle breeze tugged at her hair, making her feel alive. Ben asked, glancing over at her. "It's hard to explain," Sarah started, hesitating. "I've just always felt this pressure to fit in, to engage, to be part of everything. But sometimes," Ben nodded, absorbing her words, "I get that." A sense of connection sparked between them. Sarah thought of all the times she felt lost in a crowd, smiling while feeling deeply alone. "Exactly," she said, feeling seen. "It's okay to step away," Ben confirmed, his tone encouraging. With every word they exchanged, Sarah felt the boundaries between them dissolve. She didn't have to pretend to be someone she wasn't. They arrived at a small clearing surrounded by towering oaks seen through a sea of golden leaves. The sunlight filtered through the branches, creating a warm, inviting glow. "Wow, this place is beautiful," she said, stepping into the clearing. Ben smiled. They wandered further into the clearing, and Sarah felt a lightness in her chest that she hadn't experienced in a long time. Sitting down on a smooth rock, she looked at Ben, who had settled on the grass close by. He paused, then shrugged, a sheepish grin on his face. "I've never been one for large crowds. It overwhelms me too." "Well then, I guess we're both outcasts," she laughed lightly, the tension easing. Ben chuckled. "Outcasts or adventurers? I like the sound of that," she mused. As they fell into easy conversation, they began to share thoughts about their dreams, those hidden desires that often stayed tucked away. Sarah opened up about her love of writing, how she had always dreamt of sharing her stories but had never felt brave enough to try. She admitted, "Everyone starts somewhere," Ben encouraged. "The important thing is to let your voice be heard." Confidence in her ignited a flicker of determination deep within. "What about you?" she asked. "I want to film, capture moments that matter, the beauty in everyday life," he said, his gaze drifting toward the pond nearby. "But sometimes I hold back. What if I miss something? Those fears sound familiar," she said softly. He nodded, and for a moment they both fell silent, contemplating the truth of their words. Then Ben spoke again, his voice steady. "But it's okay to define your own path." As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a warm golden light over the clearing, Sarah felt a rush of gratitude wash over her. Sitting here with Ben, sharing truth and honesty, felt like discovering a hidden treasure. She suggested, excitement bubbling in her chest, "What if we took small steps toward our dreams together?" He beamed at her, the twinkle in his eyes contagious. "That sounds awesome." In that moment, the world outside the clearing faded away, and Sarah felt an exhilarating sense of hope. The fears that once loomed large began to shrink in size. With Ben beside her, she held the power to explore, to share, and to create. As the shadows began to stretch, Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. "We should make a list of what we want to achieve, even if it's small things," she suggested. Ben grinned. "Let's start with something easy, like..." She laughed, the thrill of excitement coursing through her. It was a small step, but it was hers. They talked freely, exchanging ideas that inspired them both, and with every word, Sarah felt a deeper connection to Ben. He was more than a friend, he was a kindred spirit who believed in her dreams. But as the light began to fade, the distant sounds of the festival echoed through the trees again, reminding Sarah of reality. The laughter and music gradually grew louder, pulling her attention back to the world outside their sanctuary. Ben asked, his brow creasing softly. A flicker of reluctance settled in her chest. She pleaded. "Absolutely," he replied, just as she hoped, and they both settled into silence, taking in the beautiful view before them. As minutes turned into moments, they both reveled in the peaceful stillness, a sharp contrast to the chaos of the festival. Sarah couldn't help but marvel at how one simple choice, to walk instead of ride, had led her here, to this space of understanding and revelation. "Thank you for being here," she finally said, breaking the silence, her voice heartfelt. "I'm glad we took this time," he responded. With that shared understanding, the two of them began to articulate their dreams, fears, hopes, and aspirations, sharing pieces of themselves that had long remained locked away. But as dusk began to settle, casting a blanket of stars above them, Sarah faced a dilemma. The joyful sounds of the festival beckoned her back, but a deeper sense of peace held her rooted in place. "Let's not rush," she whispered, feeling the stirring in her heart. "Sounds perfect to me," Ben said, and again they fell into a comfortable silence. As the stars twinkled above, she realized that stepping away from the wagon had brought her closer to someone who truly understood her, someone who validated her feelings and dreams. In that moment, the connection felt almost tangible, like a warm thread weaving through the fabric of their lives. "Let's promise to keep challenging each other," Sarah suggested, excitement bubbling again. Ben exclaimed, and she could see the passion ignite in his eyes. As they made that pact, everything felt lighter, more hopeful. She knew there would be fears and challenges ahead, but together they could support each other, making those dreams a reality. Finally, the last rays of sunlight left the world and shadows slid in, deepening the atmosphere of their little sanctuary. The festival lights twinkled like distant stars, tempting her to return. But as she felt Ben beside her, she also felt something shift within herself, a newfound strength. She asked, acknowledging the call of the festivities. "Only if you want to," Ben replied, his eyes holding hers. She smiled, holding his gaze. "Let's leave the wagon behind a little longer." And as they sat there together, enveloped in the quiet of the night, Sarah felt as if she were finally stepping into her own story. She wasn't just a passenger in life, she was the one steering her journey, empowered and free. With Ben by her side, she knew they were both going to embrace whatever lay ahead together. And as they lingered under the stars, every fear felt a little farther away, a little less daunting. Eventually, they would return to the crowd and the vibrant chaos of the festival, but tonight was reserved for adventure, the adventurous souls who chose to walk instead of ride. And in that choice, they found connection, truth, and the courage to be truly themselves. In that vast open space, with dreams no longer stifled, Sarah discovered a new beginning in their friendship, one she would carry forward into the beautiful uncertainty that lay ahead. The voice rang through the crisp autumn air, cutting sharply against the backdrop of laughter and chatter at the old country fair. Families milled about, the scent of fresh popcorn and caramel apples wafting through the air, while children darted past in a blur of colorful costumes. But amidst the vibrant festival atmosphere, Sarah stood rooted to the spot, her heart pounding like a drum. The bright red wagon loomed ahead, filled to the brim with hay and eager grins, bouncing slightly as excited kids clamored inside. It was every bit a scene of joy, but all Sarah could feel was the tightening knot in her stomach. The thought of clambering into that rickety cart made her anxious. She shouted back, shaking her head defiantly. Her friends turned to her, confusion etched on their faces. "What do you mean you can't?" one of them said, bouncing impatiently. "No." With that, she felt the crowd's focus shift towards her, a mix of surprise, judgment, and irritation flickering in their eyes, but just then she spotted him. Ben stood a few steps back, his dark hair and relaxed demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around him. He seemed to sense her distress, taking a small step forward. He asked, his voice calm and steady. The weight of the world lightened in that moment. "Yes." "That more than anything," she said, relief washing over her. Without a second thought, they turned away from the wagon and the clamor of her friends, the vibrant festival fading into the background. As they walked side by side along a winding path, Sarah felt her heart begin to settle. The sounds of laughter and music turned into a soft hum, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves and the cool breeze brushing against her skin. Each step felt liberating, like she was shedding the weight of expectations. Ben asked, glancing sideways at her. She hesitated, then replied, "It's just, being in that wagon felt so confining. All that laughter surrounding me felt isolating." Ben nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I get that." They continued on the path, the beauty of the autumn foliage bright around them. Sarah could feel the tension melting away, each breath more refreshing than the last. "You know, I often feel like I'm not enough." Ben replied, his eyes focused straight ahead as if contemplating the very essence of their conversation. "Exactly," Sarah exclaimed. Ben grinned, the warmth of his smile igniting a spark of courage within her. "Then why not? It's your life to lead." The metaphor struck a chord. She could almost see it vividly in her mind, a winding road surrounded by trees, each branch representing a different choice. "So simple, yet so hard," she said softly. Walking further along the path, Sarah felt empowered by her own realizations. Together, they found a small clearing with trees bowing together like old friends whispering secrets to each other. Sunlight filtered through the branches, casting a beautiful mosaic of light on the ground. "Looks like a perfect spot," Ben said, gesturing for them to sit on a large rock. Sarah obliged, feeling the rough texture against her skin as she relaxed. She asked, curious to know more. "I do," Ben admitted, a hint of hesitance flickering in his eyes. "I care a lot about what other people think. There's always this nagging voice telling me to fit in, to follow the crowd." "Right, it's exhausting trying to please everyone," Sarah said, nodding along with his words. "But also, what if they don't care?" "Exactly," he replied, leaning closer. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Sarah felt warmed by more than just the sunlight. It was Ben's understanding, his willingness to open up, that drew her in. She could see how this moment was transforming. They were no longer just friends, but allies in the quest for authenticity. Ben asked, his voice sincere. For a moment, Sarah's heart raced as she hesitated. I've always wanted to write, to share my stories, but I'm terrified. What if they don't resonate? He looked at her thoughtfully. What if it inspires even one person? His confidence lit a fire inside her. You're right, she said, feeling determination surging. I have stories to tell. Yes, Ben said, his excitement infectious, and I'd love to help you. The thought illuminated her mind like a spark igniting a flame. That sounds incredible. What if I focus on my experiences and you could create videos around them? I love that, Ben affirmed, beaming at her. Sarah was filled with gratitude, realizing how empowering it felt to speak out loud about her dreams. They had entered this beautiful exchange, two people walking beside each other, carving their own paths. But as dusk began to settle, the laughter from the festival floated back to them, piercing through the tranquility of the clearing. It was a bittersweet reminder of the world rushing on without them. Ben asked gently. A pang of reluctance shot through Sarah. The thought of returning to the loud commotion felt overwhelming, but the connection they had built in this serene spot was something she didn't want to give up. Can we? She whispered, her heart racing at the vulnerability of the request. Of course, I'm not in any hurry, he said, shifting closer, his eyes warm with understanding. They settled into a comfortable silence, occasionally catching each other's gaze and sharing smiles. Sarah took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp air that felt so refreshing against the backdrop of their conversation. I'm really glad I chose to walk, she admitted, breaking the silence. Me too, Ben replied, sincerity shining in his eyes. As they sat in the cool evening air, the sky transformed into a canvas painted with stars. Each twinkling light felt like all the hopes and dreams they had just shared, hanging above them, waiting to be pursued. She asked, curiosity rising within her. I used to, he said with a nostalgic smile. I lost myself in it maybe too much. That's a lesson we could all use, she mused. As they talked, the overwhelming noise of the festival faded. Instead, they created their own comforting bubble out in the clearing, allowing thoughts and dreams to tumble freely into the open. The conversation shifted seamlessly from stories of their childhood to the hopes for their futures. Sarah felt a thrill of validation as Ben listened intently, anchoring her thoughts and showing that he cared. Finally, as the evening drifted into night, the stars twinkled brightly above them, a silent confirmation of their commitments to each other. Let's promise to keep challenging one another, she suggested, her voice soft but determined. I will, he affirmed, the enthusiasm radiating from him. Sitting there together, Sarah recognized that they were both embarking on new paths. It was a promise forged in the shimmering light of the stars, and somehow she felt more ready than ever to step into her story. As they stood to leave, the chill in the air reminded her that evening had set in. Ben asked, his demeanor a mixture of encouragement and concern. Yeah, I think so, she replied reluctantly, a part of her wanting to stay in their precious moment. As they walked away from the clearing, the sounds of the festival grew louder, but now they felt different, not overwhelming, but merely a reminder of life's vibrant chaos. Thank you for walking beside me today, Sarah said, turning to him, her heart full. I'm grateful for our adventure too, he said, sincere warmth in his eyes. As they strolled side by side, laughter and music swirled around them. Sarah felt a newfound courage wrap around her like a comforting blanket. She was no longer just a girl lost in a crowd. She was someone ready to explore her dreams, ready to face whatever came next with Ben beside her. In that moment, she truly understood that it wasn't just about refusing to ride in the wagon. It was about embracing her journey, step by step. Together, they walked into the night, ready to embrace the adventures that awaited them two friends, carving their own paths and lighting the way for each other through the beautiful uncertainty of life. Each stride felt like a promise made, a foundation for dreams that would soon take flight. The question burst forth from her friend's lips, cutting through the noise of the bustling autumn fair. Laughter and excitement filled the air like the sweet scent of cinnamon and caramel apples, but Sarah stood frozen, her heart pounding. The brightly painted wagon, overflowing with hay and flanked by eager, smiling faces, bobbed invitingly in front of her. Yet all she could feel was an overwhelming tide of anxiety sweeping over her. I can't, she said, her voice shaking just a little. Another friend chimed in, bouncing with enthusiasm. But as Sarah looked at the wagon swaying gently, it felt like being trapped in a box full of expectations and chaos. Just behind her, the festival lights twinkled, the sounds of joyful screams and laughs echoing around. She felt the weight of those sounds pressing down on her, tightening around her throat. With every heartbeat, dread filled her. The thought of squeezing into that cart made the air feel thin, and as she shook her head vigorously, desperation clawed at her inside. No, someone laughed, but Sarah could feel the eyes of her friends boring into her, thinly veiled judgment swirled with confusion. At that moment, she noticed him, Ben, standing a little back from the crowd, his dark hair tousled and his gentle gaze focused on her. There was a calmness about him, a steadiness that made the chaotic atmosphere feel a little less overwhelming. He stepped forward, breaking the tension with his easy smile. He asked, voice low and soft, almost like a soothing balm against her anxious heart. Her breath caught. You do that? Of course, he replied, no hesitation in his tone. Relief washed over her, a wave of freedom coursing through her veins. Okay, let's go, Sarah said, her heart lightening as they turned away from the wagon, leaving behind the laughter. As they walked side by side, the noise of the festival faded to a gentle hum, replaced by the rustle of leaves underfoot and the whispers of the wind. The world opened up before her, and she felt as if every restriction had fallen away. Ben asked, glancing over at her. It just feels so. She admitted, the words spilling out as they strolled along a winding path edged with vibrant autumn leaves. Ben nodded, thoughtful. I totally get that. A moment of silence hung between them, and Sarah felt a connection forge in that shared understanding, a bridge forming across their experiences. Yeah, and it's exhausting pretending, he said softly, a hint of empathy in his voice. As they meandered deeper into the park, the chatter began to fade away. The trees stood tall around them, leaves swirling down like confetti falling from the sky. Ben's presence beside her gave her courage, and she soon found herself sharing her thoughts more freely. Sarah asked, a tremor of curiosity in her tone. What do you feel pressured about? He hesitated for a moment, brow furrowing in thought. All the time, honestly, I feel like everyone has their lives all figured out, and I'm just out here wandering, trying to figure out where I belong. His honesty hung in the air, and for a moment everything felt more open, more vulnerable. I think we all try to find ways to hide, she said softly. It's hard to embrace your true self, Ben replied, his voice steady. But you have to let go of that fear and just be you. That's easy to say, Sarah said, laughing lightly to ease the heaviness in her heart. They walked on, navigating the path littered with fallen leaves that crunched beneath their feet. A small creek bubbled nearby, the water glimmering like diamonds in the midday sun. As Sarah looked at that safe, tranquil spot, the tension began to slip away a little more. Let's take a break here, Ben suggested, gesturing to a weathered log that lay by the creek. Good idea, Sarah agreed, her heart racing just slightly as they settled in. The sound of the water flowing, the rustling leaves, and the warmth of the sun felt healing. I feel like I can talk to you without worrying, she admitted, looking over at him. I feel the same way. It's nice to find someone who understands, he said, his gaze steady and sincere. Just as Sarah began to relax, she heard the distant shrieks of excitement ringing out from the festival. A sharp pang of anxiety gripped her, reminding her that the world still buzzed away from their peaceful moment. She said, the fear creeping in again. Let them think what they want. You're doing what's right for you, Ben responded. His words felt like a protective shield against her fears. You're right, she said, a hint of determination sparking within her. He asked, genuinely curious. I don't know yet, she admitted, her voice soft. I'm still figuring it out. But writing has always been a dream of mine. Everyone has a story worth telling, he said firmly. His conviction ignited something deep inside her. Maybe I will, she said quietly, the thought blooming into something tangible. A smile broke across Ben's face. Then let's make a pact. You focus on writing and I'll help you do it. Sarah grinned, feeling a rush of excitement flow through her. In that moment, it felt like they were crafting a future together, one that involved the truest versions of themselves. As the sun began its descent, casting golden rays across the water, Sarah couldn't shake the disbelief that one small decision had led her here, away from the wagon, away from the expectations. Thank you for walking with me, really, she said, her voice heartfelt. Anytime, Ben replied, warmth radiating from him. But just as the deep connection between them began to expand, the sounds of the festival grew louder, beckoning her back toward the crowd. Ben asked, uncertainty creeping into his tone. The question tugged at her heart. A part of her wanted to return, to embrace the fun of the festival, but another part longed to savor the moment with him just a little while longer. Just, she whispered, her heartbeat quickening with the vulnerability of the request. Absolutely, he said, the sincerity in his voice giving her strength. They returned to a comfortable silence, the creek bubbling softly nearby. The night was beginning to unfurl, the sky darkening as stars began to peek through the haze. I never want to rush this, she said softly. It is, Ben agreed. As time slipped away, she found herself lost in thoughts and admiration. She had come to realize what a kindred spirit he truly was. Beneath the fears, the laughter, and the vulnerability, there was a connection that felt almost tangible. But as they sat quietly, a sudden sound broke through their bubble, a distant scream echoing through the trees. It sent a shiver down her spine. Sarah asked, her heart racing. Ben frowned, his brows knitted together. I'm not sure, she replied, that knot of anxiety tightening again. Come on, it might just be someone having fun, he said, trying to reassure her. But she could hear the concern lace through his voice. With a hesitant nod, they stood up and walked toward the sound. Every step felt heavy as the festival lights glimmered faintly in the distance. As they approached the clearing, Sarah's heart raced, a strange anticipation coursing through her veins. The laughter had waned, replaced by murmurings of concern. When Ben and Sarah reached the edge of a crowded area, they stopped short. Flickering light, she saw panic on her friends' faces as they clustered around someone on the ground. Sarah whispered, dread undulating in her stomach. One of her friends turned to her, fear etched in their features. It's Emily, she fell off the wagon. Time slowed as Sarah's heart dropped. Emily was one of their closest friends, someone always at the center of the fun. The realization sent a cold rush through her. Ben grabbed her hand tightly as they pushed through the crowd, his grip firm and reassuring. "We need to make sure she's okay," he urged softly, but inside, Sarah felt an overwhelming swell of dread. As they reached the front, she realized their carefree day had crumbled into something darker, and in that moment, she wondered if she could ever truly escape the chaos that seemed to follow her. But before she could voice her fear, the medics arrived, cutting through the crowd with a professionalism that put everyone at ease. Yet still, the knot in her stomach twisted tighter. As they stepped closer, Ben turned to her, his gaze serious. Sarah nodded, squeezing his hand back, but deep in her heart, uncertainty reigned. With a mixture of anxiety and trepidation, she braced herself for what lay ahead, unaware that this moment would test not just their friendship, but also the very boundaries of her own courage. In a heartbeat, everything changed, and suddenly, staring at Emily's still form, Sarah found herself questioning everything she knew about bravery, about friendship, and about what it truly meant to be alive.